Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Julia Cisneros. I just wanted to make a really quick presentation to share with you my advice on applying for a postdoc. So I just want to say that this is my advice because it comes from my experience and my perspective, and there are several experiences, and I think it's very important for you to talk to several people, as many people as you can talk to, and people that you trust to give you their honest perspective and their ideas and the things that they did and what worked for them and what didn't. um, but I figured, I do have a perspective and I am willing to share it. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that with you. I also wanted to note that this was a presentation that I gave to to the graduate students in my department. So it's not like a beautiful presentation that's been prepared and amazing and all that stuff. I had like less than a week to make it and prepare for it. So bear with me. There's a lot of text, but I think the fact that this is a recording and that the presentation will be there, I think that's useful because you can watch it again and kind of listen to what I'm saying. And I'll sort of add a little bit of ideas in there as I think about them, and especially the things that I kind of forgot to add while I presented it the first time. So I'm going to share my screen now, and let's hope that this works. Okay, and then I'm going to present here. Okay, wait, I don't know if you're seeing my screen. There we go. Oh, this is so hard. Okay. That was kind of difficult. Okay, let's hope that this works. So yeah, so this is my postdoc advice. So to give you a little bit of background, I am a graduate student. I'm a PhD candidate. This is my last year of graduate school. So I started this last year, around this time. And I think that's enough just to get started from here. Okay, so the first thing that I think is important is, I'm going to take my video off. Okay, what is a postdoc? So a postdoc is a postdoctoral research position. It's often 2 to 3 years, and it's an opportunity to take your expertise and improve it or gain new skills and expertise in a neighboring field. It develops your research and your project management skills. And it often leads to academic or industry jobs, depending on where the postdoc is. So for example, if the postdoc is at a university and you're working at a research institution, then maybe it's more academic. Maybe you want to pursue something academic, whereas if it's something at the USGS or like Los Alamos lab, then maybe that's, well, Los Alamos is something in the middle, but something more in the industry, sort of or governmental agency. But that's important to consider, because that moment, the postdoc, is a time to meet more people, learn about their work, and then share your work with a large audience. So if you want to pursue something that's more, in the government, or like your dream is to work at the United States Geological Survey, for example, then it's good to have a postdoc there, because then you can meet more people in that, at the USGS or, at Los Alamos, and then you can share your work, and then they can be like, wow, okay, I met this person, Julia Cisneros, and her research is super cool. And so this is really the chance to kind of broadcast yourself to so many more people than you were able to in your PhD. And so the question then becomes, why do I want a postdoc? And I think that this is a very important question to ask yourself. And to kind of go further into this question, some follow-up questions that you should ask yourself, and these are the ones that I asked myself, are there any directions that you see your research going after a PhD? And what about them excites you? So is there something that you know, you always kind of wanted to do in your PhD, but you weren't able to do, you know, something that you see as a direct shoot off of the skills that you've learned, that with a little bit of help and like somebody who does something a little bit different, um, can put their expertise into that project, and boom, you have something that you could do within 2 years that you could complete. I think that that's really a big part of this is there something that you see doing, and does it excite you? Because if that's the case, then absolutely I recommend that you try to pursue a postdoc to kind of pursue that part. But that's really not the only way that you can decide if you need a postdoc. Some people, you know, they're just like, I'm totally over what I did in my PhD and I want to do something else. And I have all these skills and I love research and I want to do something else. And so the next question is, would you like to improve or gain any skills that you have developed? Or do you want to gain skills that you haven't developed in your PhD? So for example, a lot of my work is is field work, and then using the data that we collect to analyze and then find, you know, trends that will tell us about, you know, how these things formed. So I study dunes that form at the bottom of rivers, and my major question is, how do these move? What is the shape of these dunes, and how can we use this information to understand how they're changing now and how they've changed in the past? And so one of the things that I really, really wanted to learn and that I wasn't able to do is I wanted to learn how to use other types of equipment. So for example, like remote sensing equipment, aerial, you know, flying drones to do structure for motion things. And I wasn't able to do that in my PhD because my PhD was not focused on aerial things. It was all underwater stuff. But I thought that using drones was cool and remote sensing is cool. So I really wanted to do that. And those were game skills that I really wanted to develop during a postdoc. For the future job that you want, what will a postdoc help you achieve? So I think this is really important because some jobs don't really require us to have a postdoc. For example, if you want to teach in higher education, you know, if you want to teach at a dominant, you know, undergrad college, you don't necessarily need a postdoc to begin teaching that job. A lot of times people will be hired without a postdoc into that position. And so I think, you know, this is really a big point, is to figure out, you know, can you do the job that you want to do with it without a postdoc? And if you do a postdoc, what is it going to help you achieve? Because sometimes it may be better just to jump into the job, shoot for the job that you want right now, instead of applying for a postdoc. And in general, I recommend applying for jobs anyway during this time because it's really great experience to learn how to apply for a job. So for me, I applied to academic positions as well as postdocs, just because I thought that it would be a great experience to sort of start to prepare those materials anyway, so that in the future I could, you know, further develop them, revise them, improve them. So there's different types of postdocs. The first would be jumping on a fixed project. So I think for me, the way I envision this is that there's 3 different types of postdocs. The first is to jump on a fixed project. So here, the employer has a postdoc position, and this is often through a funded grant. And the position is often fixed within a general research theme. And so your flexibility depends on the project and the employer. So maybe, you know, maybe they wrote a NASA grant, and within the NASA grant, they said, we're going to have a postdoc for 2 years. We need funding for 2 years, and they're going to pursue this part of the project. And so really it's pretty fixed on how you do that. And so they're going to be putting out advertisements for, you know, we need a postdoc who's in this field, who has experience doing this, and who can pursue this kind of project. And so that's very fixed. And that's a great way to jump onto a postdoc. Often those are advertised, you know, online through different societies like AGU. Sometimes they send them to the Geo-Latinas. They would be smart if they sent them to the Geo-Latinas. And then sometimes it's word of mouth, which is always troubling and hard to justify. The second is jumping on a project with funding, but no hard research commitment. So here, the best way to think about this is like maybe the PI has a startup fund. So maybe they were recently hired, they have a little bit of money to hire on a postdoc for maybe a year. And so they put out an advertisement and they say, hey, I want a postdoc in these broad themes and interest areas. And the point here is that you could jump on that first project for that 1 year, but really these are often meant to develop a new research direction for the PI and for the research group of the PI. So because of that, it's usually meant to hire a strong candidate who can explore new topics, who can broaden the research group, and who can potentially apply for future postdoc funding or future funding for the PI. So here, maybe you come on as for a year, and then you're starting to develop these new methods, you're developing these new research areas, you're sort of sniffing out those cool problems, and midway through the year, the PI is like, hey, okay, let's start writing a grant. Let's write a postdoc together and let's get a fellowship together so that we can keep you on for 2 years. Or I really want to write an NSF, I don't know, some kind of a big grant. And I want to write you in as a postdoc. Can you help me write this grant? And so there, it's really important. And I'm sorry I keep saying NSF, but NSF is the National Science Foundation. I'm in the U.S., and so that's usually that's a big funder for us, and so that's what I mean. But whatever national funding institution that you have, but really that's a way to get somebody on, and then often it's meant to have future funding, and you would have to identify that future funding and pursue that with the PI. And then the last thing is applying for a fellowship. And so when you apply for a postdoctoral fellowship, you are the center of the project. You choose the mentor, and this mentor is going to help you develop the project and your skill set. So you apply for it. Often it's an award to you, and then the people that you've identified as mentors and the institution that you said that you want to work at is, a part of that project, but it's really about you. And so you maybe say that I'm going to work with like 2 people at these 2 different universities. I'm going to be at this one, and I'll travel to this one every once in a while. But really, this is the time for you to identify who out there is going to help you develop into the kind of scientist and researcher that you want to be. So it's a time for you to identify the people that you admire and the people that you are excited about working with. But really, it's really important to remember that you are the center of the project when you apply and receive a fellowship. You have more freedom and flexibility, but you're also expected to develop a project and secure funding. And so it is a little bit like a double-edged sword. You do get to not do whatever you want, but you get to pursue the things that excite you. You get to sort of have that freedom to go and kind of delve off into these tangents and enjoy it. But also, the project is to you. You need to secure the funding. You need to come up with the idea. And also you need to, at some point, show that you've been able to produce something. Often the fellowship committee, whoever has given you that fellowship, is going to have, an annual report, and you have to show, okay, I actually produced something, I did something. And so that's really up to you. And I think all of these postdocs would have that, but it's a little bit more focused on the fellowship that, this is up to you. And so you really have to take the lead on a lot of these things. So the next thing is how to find a postdoc position. The first thing I would say is to search for open positions. So here you want to make it known that you're looking for positions. I started about a year ahead of time, like I said, so about this time. I was like, well, I'm graduating hopefully next year, so let's start to make it known. And it's creepy to talk about, but I think it's important, and you just gotta start talking about it, which is weird, especially when you're not done, but that's usually how things happen. You start to juggle a lot of things. So the last year of your PhD, you're kind of juggling doing your research and finishing your dissertation, but also trying to solidify that future or whatever future plans you have. And so the first thing I did was I just started talking about it. Just said, yeah, like somebody at a conference will say, hey, so what are you doing? What's your plan? And I'm like, Yeah, so I am going to graduate in a year, and I'm looking for postdocs. Okay, yeah, I guess yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking for postdocs, and it's weird to start, but then once you kind of get the conversation going, you kind of know how to say it again, and whatever, you do it a lot, you get used to it, and then it just doesn't become as scary. So the first thing I would say is make it known that you're looking for positions for you, for yourself, and then for other people, just to keep an eye out for things for you. Put it on your Twitter, put it on your LinkedIn, whatever ways that you communicate to people in the field, put it on there. Put it on GeoLatinos for sure. Tell people that you're looking for something, because we all have ears, we all have eyes, we're all seeing this information coming in all the time. Sign up for several listservs. So listservs, I think, is a great way to receive information from your field and from the just general entities that exist already. So AGU, the American Geophysical Union, is a great one. For me, the Geological Society, wait, oh my gosh, what does GSA stand for? Geological Society of America. Geological Society of America. You just say GSA all the time. So GSA is a good one for me, but really for me the best one is Gilbert Club. So Gilbert Club is like a similar group. It's a society of like geomorphologists, and so that's kind of what I do. So Gilbert Club is the one that I get a lot of information in. I feel like if you do anything related to like water, how water moves, how things shape the earth, and even like we even get stuff about volcanology. So I think generally sign up for Gilbert Club. You just search Gilbert Club on Google, you'll find it. It's a group at Berkeley. That's where it's kind of led. And then you will just sign up for their listserv. So I definitely recommend doing that. Do that. And then at a certain time, like in the fall-ish, even all the way now, people are still sending out advertisements for postdocs. So that's a great way to find out about postdocs that are available. The next thing is to send cold emails. I say cold because sometimes they will be cold, but sometimes they won't. Sometimes they're going to be expected emails because you have people who are talking about you and kind of recommending you for things. And so the way I think about this is it's the most likely way to get a postdoc is to send an email to somebody and start a conversation. And so what you want to do is send emails to people that you've identified you'd like to work with. And when I say identified, for me, I looked through and I actually had people in mind that I really wanted to work with, and people that I had kind of had a good relationship, just a good passing relationship. Like at a conference, I saw you all the time. I saw this person and I was like, wow, I really connect with that person. Every time they come to my poster, we talk, we have a good conversation. I really like talking to that person. And that person is really smart and really, they value my opinion and things like that. So, sometimes they're people that you're familiar with, but I think that's really important to kind of send an email their way and just say, hey, I'm just kind of seeing if this would be a thing. Like, would you be interested? And often it's a good way to just start that conversation and get your name in their mind, so that they can kind of start thinking about, like, if I really wanted to bring Julia on, which ways could I do that? But often, like, these people that you identify come from the people that maybe, like I said before, have just shown interest in what you do, who are supportive of you, that are not like your advisor. But also, a lot of times this comes from just having a conversation with your advisor, and your advisor can identify those people for you. So sometimes sometimes your advisor can even kind of connect you to. So I think if you have a relationship like that with your advisor, definitely take advantage of it and ask for them to fill it out. Hey, can you mention to that person that I'm interested in working with them? Do you think that that's a good idea? Stuff like that. Talk to colleagues and ask if they know any open positions. So your advisor is going to be key here. If you have a good relationship with your advisor, talk to them and ask if they know of any open positions. But if you don't, and you have colleagues that you feel comfortable talking to and that support you and that will help you out, then talk to them and see if they know of any positions. When you start the email, when you send that email, you're going to start with your interest, your expertise, what you see as potential projects, things that can combine your research and their research and build this awesome project. And then send a copy of your CV. And then if you have like a paper or something, send it, but you don't have to send a paper. I mean, a CV is probably good enough. And then offer to Skype or Zoom, and or in the future offer to meet up at a conference if there's a conference coming up. So for me, the American Geophysical Union, or for example, if you're in Europe, EGU, those are great ones to be like, okay, yeah, let's meet at that time. For us, AGU's in December, and so that's a great time to meet with somebody. EGU just passed actually, but it's around this time, and so normally that's a really great time to start to meet with somebody to start thinking about projects. Then the last thing you're going to do if you're applying for a fellowship is write a proposal. So you want to identify the fellowships that you'd like to apply to, write down the requirements and the dates, talk to as many people as you can about your proposal to get feedback if you can, and then identify a mentor and discuss your proposal or send a draft to get feedback. I went through that really quickly because I'm about to go through it a lot more in detail because that's what I ended up doing. And so for me, my timeline, I started to think about a postdoc about a year before I graduated. I looked at the deadlines and I put them on my calendar. So the NSF, the National Science Foundation Postdoctoral Fellowship for Earth Sciences, is in September. That's the deadline. And so I knew that I wanted to shoot for that. So I put that in my calendar and I started to think about it about this time. I sent cold emails at the beginning of the summer, sharing my interest and my willingness to find funding opportunities. So I sent it to a few people, I think 4 or 3 people. And I just kind of said, you know, hey, I really admire what you're doing. I admire your work and I've been really interested in it. And this is kind of what I see that I could add. And this is the kind of project that I'm interested in working on. I asked to schedule a Zoom call, and then we talked about it, and then I identified, you know, we talked about what projects they would be willing to do, where my expertise is, what would be willing to do, what kind of funding opportunities are available. So sometimes there are university fellowship opportunities. And so, you know, one person was super, super awesome. And they said, you know, hey, yeah, you can apply for you know, these great, awesome fellowships, but there's also more like institutional fellowships that we can also apply for. So let's shoot for the big ones, but also, you know, there are other opportunities that we can pursue as well. And so then we can sort of modify that big fellowship to these other ones, and then we'll have more of a chance to get funding. So that's a really important phone call or a Zoom call to have. And I think that you should be ready to talk about all the funding opportunities that are available. Then you're going to start writing your proposal and your research statements about 2 months before the deadline. So if September is the deadline, I started writing them in July, but they were in no beautiful shape in July. They weren't like amazing. It was like a big brief outline of ideas, and some things were scattered, and papers had to be read and all that stuff. So it wasn't beautiful. It was just an idea. I sent a draft to my mentor, and then we started to talk about it, and it was a pretty good draft because I sent it about 3 weeks before the deadline. And I say that because, you know, a lot of us are perfectionists and we want to send something beautiful early on. And that's how I've always been. But the reality is at this time, it's going to be really busy. You know, it's September of your final year. So hopefully you're not like me and you're not just like juggling a bajillion things at once, but more than likely you are like that. And so you have to realize that your mentor is also going to be like that. And for us and for the mentor, you know, you can't expect them to go through like 5 revisions. It's just, that would be great. And if you have a mentor who can do that, then you pick the perfect mentor. But you know, you have to be realistic. And so I sent mine 3 weeks before. I got a really nice set of comments back, and then I went from there. And then about 2 days before, I got another good set of comments, but really it was just to shorten things because I was about half a page over. And then my mentor was able to help me shorten it up to, you know, the 10-page limit, and boom, I sent it. So things happen fast. And you just got to hope that, you know, other people are in your situation and you're doing the best that you can. And that's really all you can do, is you can just do the best that you can. So don't freak out if, you know, you don't have an amazing draft 3 weeks before the deadline, because mine was okay. And, you know, within those 3 weeks, it got really good. So just be okay with that. So here's an example of the email that I sent. I sent it to a professor. I introduced who I am. So you can see at the top, my name is Julia Cisneros, and this is my background. And so I adapted my background to what I thought was applicable to the project and to the person. So for example, in this case, I was really interested in studying like sand dunes on other planets and things like that. So I said, in my undergrad, this is what I did, I studied sand dunes on other planets. I explained what my research topic was in the middle part with orange boundaries. But in retrospect, I think that this could have been shortened. So I went a little bit too far into like what I do. And I was like, meh, now reading it, I'm like, nobody cares. Just like study dunes and big rivers. I use these tools. These are the main things I find. So I think I could have shortened that up a lot. But then the last part is important. So I said, I'm emailing you because I would like to talk about the prospects of joining your team as a postdoctoral researcher. Then I said specifically, I enjoy your work on this. So I pulled a piece of their work that I thought was really great and recent. And I said, this is what I really enjoyed about that. And then the last thing I said was, I'm also interested in using your expertise in blank, fill in the blank, their expertise, linking research regarding their research and how you see building your research into it to build your expertise. And then the final thing is I said, I'm also open to writing proposals for postdoctoral research grants, and I look forward to hearing your interest in working together to secure funding. And then I attached my CV. And so I think that that's really important. You know, that's something that you have to consider. So if you're not interested in writing proposals for postdoctoral research grants, then you can say, I'm interested in hearing about the opportunities for funding, or I'm interested in, hearing more about, I don't know. I mean, most often you want to show them that you're willing to put in the side of your work. You're not looking for a free ticket, because if you can show them like, I'm willing to put in the work, then often they do have funding and they'll say like, yeah, okay, I can fund you, but let's shoot for something that's a little bit more heavier. Let's try to get a better source of funding for you. But worst case scenario, I do have the money. So, and that's like, I say worst case scenario, but like, that's like the best case scenario, that somebody actually has money, but they want to shoot for something else just to get you a fellowship or something. I think, a lot of us, we're going to, especially now, it's going to be really important to sort of have to sort of just secure your own, not secure your own funding, but just make sure that the mentor knows that you're willing to put that work in now, because nobody wants to take somebody on who just expects things to be given to them. And so if you can show them that you want to work towards something together, you want to secure funding together, I think that's a very big point. And I think sometimes that's missed by people, but that really sets you apart from other people. So be sure to do that. Okay, moving on. What do I do? Okay, so my experience, I knew I wanted to shoot for a fellowship, and I knew a general project that I wanted to pursue. It's just something that has always kind of been on my mind. And so I knew like, okay, this is a general idea. It was not a fleshed out project. It was just, this is what I want to do. I want to do something in this realm. I'm really interested in that. So for me, it was linking dunes in different environments and trying to understand how they form, and trying to find a framework to understand how they form in different environments. So I wanted to focus on how dunes form in fluvial, so river environments, and then desert environments, and how one or the other can inform the formation of dunes in another environment. So for me, it was how can what I study right now, dunes and rivers, how can that inform the way that we think about how dunes and deserts form and how they move? Are they similar? Is there some sort of framework that we can use, or are they not? And so that's kind of just generally what I wanted to do. Then I contacted 4 people that were within those general fields via cold emails, but I generally knew all of them. There was only one person that I had never met, but I thought that their research was cool anyway. I decided to write 2 fellowships. When I say that, I want to make it clear that the fellowship that I was going to write was the same idea. it was just going to be modified into, the modification was coming from where is that mentor's research field focused in, what is their expertise, and how is their expertise going to help me build this project. So generally, you can think about it like the whole project was the same, but the methods were different, because the methods was, okay, I'm going to use predominantly field work to answer this question, or maybe I'm going to use predominantly lab work to answer this, or remote sensing or something like that. So that was the part that was modified. So really not that much had to be done to submit two different fellowship proposals. And the reason was because, this was my idea as a project, and I had presented it to them as, this is what I want to work on. Would you be willing to mentor me on this? This is how I see you adding to this project. And so that's kind of the best way I can tell you to present a project to somebody, but have ownership of it in the sense that you can apply for several fellowships under that project. And some people may have a different feeling on that or whatever, but that's kind of how I pursued these proposals. I was ready to modify them for general research statements for other postdoc applications, as I said, and I discussed the ideas with my identified mentors and started drafting it about 2 months before. And then I looked up people who received the fellowship, and I asked them for their proposals as examples. So I think this is super, super important. Every single time I've written anything, I've always looked up people who had received it in the past. So for me, I wanted to apply for the NSF postdoctoral research fellowship. And so I went on the website and I looked up NSF postdoctoral research fellowships in earth science, and I looked up who were the recent people. I went on Google, I searched their name, found their email address. I sent an email, and I said, hi, my name is Julia Cisneros. I am a graduate student. I would like to apply for the postdoctoral research fellowship. I saw that you recently were awarded this fellowship, and I was wondering if you would be willing to share an example with me. I think this is so important, because if you can get an example from somebody who got the award, it's so helpful, because it's not like you're going to take their work. You're trying to see, how did they present their research, from just the structure that they used all the way to like the formatting, what did they bold their sections? Did they have bullet points? Like all those little things are so helpful to show you how to really put the eyes in places that really matter. How can you present your research in a way that's really helpful to understand and easy, because you have to understand, like, these people are going through it really fast. So you want yours to stand out. You want yours to be easy to read, but it's just really, really helpful to have an example to read through it and to kind of see, like, okay, that's the level that I should be speaking at. So, or writing at, I guess. But so I think that's really important, and that's very often overlooked, but that I've done that for every single thing I've ever applied for. And I think it's really, really helpful. So you're going to get a lot of people who say no, but for every 5 people, you might get 1 or 2 who say yes. And I think that's really important. So please do that. That's really, really helpful. And then the last thing is, I wrote my draft and I sent it to my mentors and my close friends and people who could read and give me, good feedback and critical feedback. And then I took all that into account, and then I submitted it. And so in the end, I submitted 2 proposals, and then I kind of waited along, and I heard about another proposal that I thought was really cool, and so I modified the initial proposal to fit within that one. And then in the end, I got the one that I wanted, so I applied for the NSF fellowship, and then I received the NSF fellowship. So that's just kind of my experience, and I do recognize that that's not going to happen for everybody, but I think if you kind of follow these steps and you take a lot of time ahead of time to prepare and to get your stuff together, then you will be successful in at least trying to apply for as many things as you can. So for me, because I put the work into writing the NSF, I was able to modify that. If an opportunity came up I was able to kind of modify the fellowship or take the major pieces of it and boom, submit it to something else. And I didn't have to put as much work in the next time. And so, but also it really helped me kind of think about what I wanted to do in the future. You know, what is my 2-year plan, my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan? Who do I want to mold, or how do I want to mold my research in the future? And so whatever it is, I think you can always look at it as a positive experience, a learning experience to apply for these things. And there's several fellowships out there. There are governmental fellowships. There's you know, like foundational, like National Science Foundation. I think there's the NERC Foundation or NERC Fellowship in the UK. There's several things out there. I would say that I have a list, but I don't have a list. But I can try to find a list for anybody if you're interested. But that's my experience. And if you want to talk about it, I'm willing to talk. And if you want to, you know, ask me questions a little bit more about like how I pursued certain things or whatever, that's fine. I just wanted to share this with you all, and I hope it was helpful. But yeah, thank you.